गिरीश जी, एक बार फिर मेरे चैनल पे आपका स्वागत है। और आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे यूक्रेन रशिया। और ऑफ कोर्स हमारा इंटरेस्ट तो ये है कि आफ्टर ऑल इंडिया कहाँ है इस पूरे गेम में। तो सबसे पहला जो मेरा सवाल होगा आपसे वो ये होगा कि आफ्टर ऑल ये वॉर किस तरफ जा रहा है और इंडिया को ये कैसे इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकता है, और रशियन इकोनॉमी का क्या हाल आप देख रहे हो अगले 5 या 6 महीने में। सो ओवर टू यू, इट इज़ योर शो।
गुड आफ्टरनून कर्नल रविंदर जी। पहली चीज तो थैंक्स फॉर कॉलिंग मी अगेन। एंड इसके अंदर लेट मी बी वेरी क्लियर, country which are participating in the war are the worst sufferer. They are the worst sufferer. Then collateral damages is next is Europe, where the actual war is taking place, because both Russia, Ukraine, they are the in the what we can say European heart. So there they are the second biggest sufferer, and next is rest of the world like India and world, and least sufferer are China and US. So this is the sequence one we can see where this war is impacting all over the world, or you can say major economy, minor economy, whichever way, developing or developed world. As far as Russia is concerned, of course, they are better off than Ukraine, but they are the worst sufferer. The reason is very simple. Their export is mainly affected. They are having a sanction, so most of the inflation and everything is they are facing the heat. And second thing, import is also having a restriction on them. So many countries which were providing them items for their import and other thing, they are having a restriction mainly from Europe, US, and their allies. Of course, India and China is not participating in that restriction or sanction, but still they are finding it difficult, not the way as usual, but in a different way we have to move in. Now, let us look at how it is impacting the world as a whole and India in particular, because in our show we like to see how it is impacting our country.
Yes.
If you look at because of the COVID and other things, oil prices or the energy prices were not in the peak. They were running between $70-$75 per barrel. Of course, that was the Brent price I am referring. But India is taking most of the oil, Oman, UAE reference, so which is 1.5 to $2 lower than the Brent. But at the same time, if we look at some of the data which you have seen, the oil prices have shoot up from 76 or $86, let's say in January, to $120, $125 in June as of now. So if we look from uh, aspects of 25, 20 plus 15, 40, uh, 35, $40 has gone up, which is roughly increasing the price by say 20, 25%, 22% as far as India is concerned. But apart from that dollar in the oil price, there is a change in the currency vis-a-vis the oil which we are buying. As you know, energy, we are buying it at the dollar. So dollar price, which was somewhere in 74, 74.5, now it is 78 plus. So 22% was the oil price increase, 5% is the price in the currency. So we are not facing the heat of 20%, we are facing the heat of 25, 27%. So this we have to understand because of the dollar rupees and change in oil price. Now, if we look at the supply side, the world is having a sufficient supply if situation were normal, and US was also having economy was developing and coming back to normal, but slight restriction due to COVID in China, that has blessing in disguise. The economy was little bit not badly impacted because of the China's restriction. But now China has also come back to the normal, so the oil prices is impacting. But in the overall game, every country is having their interest first and then the next, and which is a right also, whether it is India, whether it is US, whether it is Russia, whether it is Europe or China or other thing. So India has taken a very balanced position. We are neither here nor there. We are supporting as per the principle of our last friendship and other thing. So Russia and India is having a very good relationship. So in spite of if you will be surprised, uh, Russia is giving oil at a discount of 20-25% than the price, which otherwise are available. Now, earlier, uh, European was the main traders. Now, trader in oil industry is commonly understood, but for a common person, let me explain. Everyone cannot go and buy oil like we go and buy the item like sugar and other things from any other place. So oil either has to be government to government or refiners are having. Otherwise, you have to go through the traders and then through them you are buying. So Europe, Japan, Korea, they are the main traders which are covering most of the world. India may like Reliance and IOC over they were doing it for their own. So, but still traders are still having a main say. Initially, this uh, Russia was allowed to export to Europe because of their requirement and other things. India was having, in spite of all the pressure from that, but we were able to get it some 20-25% lower than the prevailing market situation. Till April, or you can say prior to that, Russia was not in the top 10 supplier of crude oil to India, which were less than 1 to 3% of our total requirement in our energy requirement. If we look at, I'm excluding gas, which is mainly coming from the LNG from Qatar. You will be surprised. And can you imagine where does Russia stand now for import of India?
Must be
क्या आप
number
सोच
two
सकते
or
हैं
number one.
number two Number two has reached the position. Of course, Saudi is number one. Earlier, USA was number two, which has displaced Iraq and other things, which was also a surprise because US was not to that much extent, but still it is there. Now, I'm coming back to the world, what is happening. Now, in between, recently, what is happening? Gas has suddenly become a hot potato. Everyone is looking at gas. The reason is gas is a limited supply either from Russia or from Qatar, which is the main source, and of course, US. But US market is located in a far off, and they are mainly covering US and Canada and other places. So their supply of LNG was limited to the Europe and the other part because their internal demand itself was high. So when the Russia was restricted, so Qatar has suddenly seen their prices from $11 has gone up to $60 for a short period in a dollar per MMBTU. You can imagine 5 to 6 times, which oil has gone hardly 30-40 times, but gas prices has gone up because Europe is mainly depending upon the gas from the Russia, which they try to control it so that they can impact economically to Russia. So this was one of the reasons. And US was trying to control it by supplying their gas to Europe and other parts so that European countries are in a better off. Then they can go ahead with the strict restriction on Russia. Unfortunately, or you can say coincidentally, or whatever you call it, the word, US West Coast, which is the main source of gas supply, has a fire incident. Now, don't ask me whether it is genuine, ungenuine, but let us assume it is genuine. So their gas supply or LNG is stopped for 3 to 4 weeks now, which has suddenly reduced their export gas. So gas prices in US is down by 16%.
Okay.
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 And now what will happen? The export which was happening from US to Europe, the prices has gone up by 16%.
Okay. Okay.
So Europe is another sufferer. As I said, the collateral damage is happening on the Europe. Russia, they are trying to reduce it, but now again, this kind of incident or accident can cause such kind of a problem. So these are the energy front where Europe and we all are impacted. At the same time, let's understand one more point. Europe is and all other currency. Let's say another factor which because of the war and other thing, most of the countries in the world are impacted because of this. Only thing is 5% to 10%, you can say depreciation in foreign currencies with respect to dollar is 5 to 10%. You will be very happy to note India is one of the least sufferer from this impact. Why? There are many reasons, but let's say for our economy, we are around 5.5% lower. If we say 74.5 to 78, which is around 5%, whereas the other countries which are having the most impact is yuan is around 6.3%. You can say uh, euro is down by 6.6%, and UK pound is down by 10%. Now,
Okay.
why UK pound is down by 10%? There is another reason, because they are not part of Europe, so they are having impact from both the side, European as well as other. So you can say 5% to 10%, most of the currencies are down with respect to dollar. The third impact, which is worldwide, everybody is facing the heat, is the inflation. All countries are all-time high, sometimes 30 to 40 years high inflation, whether it is India, whether it is US, whether it is Europe, whether it is Japan or other countries. So if we look from all these aspects, so we are in the same boat like Europe and other things, but not that much impacted, because Europe is facing the heat directly where we are away. At the same time, let's understand Europe Union is also consistent of many countries which are not as strong economically like France or Germany, but because they are part of the European Union, they are somehow managing it. But now once Europe Union is having a heat, so Germany and France, they can't take the burden of all the European Union. So what will happen? The weaker or the economically weaker countries will have an impact. So this war has to be curtailed either by the direct parties like Ukraine and Russia, or the European Union will have any say in that, so that otherwise these countries will economically go not worse like Sri Lanka, but similar to that, whether it is Greece or whether it is Portugal or even Italy. So these countries are having an impact because of this war. So this is in nutshell impact of this thing. India is impacted, but not that bad like Europe. But at the same time, in long term, all over the world, we will have this problem.
अच्छा, मेरा एक बेसिक क्वेश्चन था इंपोर्ट ऑफ रशियन ऑयल। उसमें हमारे लॉजिस्टिकली या जो सिस्टम है ना, एक फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम है, रूपी रूबल ट्रेड, और इट वाज थ्रू डॉलर बिफोर दैट। तो अभी वो वाला डॉलर वाला तो सिस्टम ख़त्म हो गया, बिकॉज रशिया इज़ आउट ऑफ स्विफ्ट और एनी अदर फाइनेंशियल बैंकिंग ट्रांजेक्शन सिस्टम। तो अभी हमारा जो डायरेक्ट ट्रेड हो रहा है, दैट इज़ वन पार्ट। और दूसरा, उसके अलावा अगर ये वार आगे बढ़ता है, दोनों के बीच में इवन नेवी का भी इन्वॉल्वमेंट हो जाता है, या फिर नाटो के साथ कोई एस्केलेशन हो जाता है रशिया का, उस हालत में इज इट पॉसिबल कि हम लोग इंपोर्ट ना कर पाए रशिया से ऑयल को?
See, let's understand there are two aspects of any crude which we are importing. All over the world, refineries are designed for certain kind of a crude. It's not like I can handle or any refinery can handle any kind of crude. They are designed for a certain kind of a crude. So Russian crudes can be handled mostly by Europe and some China and part in India. So let it be very clear, Russian crude oil cannot be handled everywhere and anywhere. So market is limited. Now Europe is having an impact because of their war and other things. So China, it can handle it, and India. Now you might have heard there is a news that private refinery was importing maximum of Russian crude vis-a-vis other. The reason is that private refinery is having the best technology, designed latest with the highest any kind of a crude from 1 to 10 scale. So we can handle more than any other refinery which are in operation. So this is one part. So one is I'm talking about handling of the crude. Then is the logistic. So logistically, there is a crude oil supply has to be there. Insurance value has gone up. Number of tanker has reduced because of the war and other thing. And you will be surprised the crude, which is the tanker and other thing, the insurance premium is much lower for Europe than India and China, because all these companies are driven by European and US. So they are having their own premium for particular countries which they like, and they can have some extra penalty, or you can say a higher premium for country like India and other things. So we are paying. So the crude oil, which suppose Russia is sending to Europe and to India, there is a 15 to 20% lower price for Europe than vis-a-vis India. If we look CIF value separate because of the and these countries are trading, our European countries are. Now, you will be very happy to note crude oil is one part. Russia and India has started ruble and rupees payment system engagement, which was earlier not considered from both the side because everybody want to keep their currency at a higher level, whether it is Russia or whether it is India. But now these discussions are taking place, and very shortly, in a few days, we will find Russia and India has agreed to a mechanism which is meeting the sanction requirement, means we will not be violating any of the sanction which is imposed by the UN or US and other nations, but there will be a mechanism which payment of ruble and rupees can be made to Russian import or Russian export from vis-a-vis India and Russia. So this can be taken care. Second, and the most important point, which I don't know whether how many people are aware, so far, from Russia to India, if we are bringing this item, it was coming from Suez, and it was some 16,000 kilometer traveling distance was there from Russian to, because we are coming from entire Europe and Africa and then coming back to here. Recently, I will say as a experiment basis with the government of India and Iran, we had come back to the Caspian Sea, from Russia to Caspian Sea, which is the border of Iran, and then inland part of the Iran. Why inland part of the Iran? Because that way we avoid Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Oh.
And from Bandar of us from Iran to India. So it is hardly 11. We are saving around 10,000 kilometer extra saving of the sea route. Vis-a-vis, if we compare, if we come by the normal entire Europe and Africa, which is 16,000 some odd kilometer, or we come via this Iran online part and then Caspian Sea and India, so which is around 7,000 kilometer, which saves around 40% of the traveling time and 30% of the cost. Now, how it is benefited? It will benefit Iran, it will benefit India, and it will benefit Russia, because many of the things which are not under restriction, but we were not finding it economically viable to export and import from these reasons. Now with these three countries, this we can do send, import, and export. So Russia, India, this is the case. So coming back to your main question, if there is a strict restriction and other thing, then one may find alternate. Somebody is buying Russian crude and exchanging it, and then through that we can buy it. But total control, if we stop it, then recession will be very high, the inflation will be very high. I mean, because of the 10 million barrel coming out of the market, which will make many countries default, and economy will be in a very, very bad shape for the world, which nobody want to handle it, whether it is Europe, whether it is US or Russia or India. So yes, theoretically yes, but chances of that is happening is very low.
Are we getting any gas also from Russia?
As of now, no. The reason is, again, as I said, this is a route which is coming by a long route, 16,000, 7,000 kilometers, which we can't do it onshore part because it requires a certain type of vessel, which is of different, we can say draft, which is not possible to come through Caspian and other thing. And then on part, we cannot do it. So it has to come through a longer route. If we can economically make it viable, yes. But it will be very difficult the moment it crosses $20 a long term. Gas will not be economically viable for India to buy it for a long term. For a short duration, it is different, but not for a long term, because most of the use of the gas is in the fertilizer and petrochemical, and then city gas distribution. City gas distribution will switch over to diesel and other things, so will not be able to absorb higher gas price for India.
मैं एक बड़ा सिंपल सी मतलब बेसिक क्वेश्चन है मेरा ये, अगर लॉन्ग टर्म में ये वॉर चलता है और रशिया की इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन, आई एम वेरी श्योर कि धीरे धीरे करके एक साल के अंदर ये और डाउन हो जाने वाली है, और हम लोग वहाँ से ऑयल इंपोर्ट करते रहे, जो भी आपने बताया वाई ईरान और अदरवाइज। तो हमारे यहाँ जो महंगाई की हालत है, जो रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन है, व्हाट डू यू थिंक हाउ इट विल बी शेपिंग अप? और अगर हमारा परसेंटेज जो टोटल हमारी रिक्वायरमेंट है उसका परसेंटेज रशिया से जो इंपोर्ट है ऑयल का, वो कंटिन्यूअसली बढ़ता रहे।
As I said, we cannot handle 100% Russian oil even if it is available. Let's understand the technical utilization because all refinery cannot handle Russian oil. Okay, so we have to have it Arab oil and other kind of things. You can mix, you can change it from 3% to 20%, but you cannot make it 60%, 70%. So for our refinery handling capacity and type of refinery which we are having, we cannot go beyond a certain point. So that is technical requirement. Now, all refinery can handle it, but then what will happen? Their efficiency will go down. They will not be able to make the premium product out of it. It's like an inefficient way of handling that thing. So no refinery would like to go for it. And so that is one of the reasons. But what will happen prior to that? There are many countries, not only India and Europe, many African and Asian countries will be in a different situation like Sri Lanka and many other such countries. So which will be a much more difficult situation for world to face. And it will not be in anybody's interest to continue like that because inflation will be the biggest, uh, you can say, dampener for this war to continue. So either European nations will start this dialogue first and then stop it, or other countries. So when this trigger will start, but India, China, Japan, Korea, US, we can handle it in a much longer period vis-a-vis other countries. But if we all countries will be impacted, there's no doubt about that. Like we are facing, the prices of all emergency or essential items are going high.
अब मैं स्विच ओवर करता हूँ इंटरनेशनल स्ट्रेटेजिक रिलेशनशिप पे। चाइना रशिया जैसे लड़ाई बढ़ती रहेगी, रशिया की चाइना के ऊपर डिपेंडेंस बढ़ती रहेगी। दिस इज एवरीबडीज एजम्पशन, एंड वी हैव गॉट फ्रेंडली रिलेशंस विद रशिया। डू यू थिंक इन द फोर्सेबल फ्यूचर Russia, China will get closer and closer, and probably India will be closer to USA?
See, we cannot deny the influence of China over Russia. There's no doubt about that. India is not reached to that stage where economically or militarily or from the geopolitical position point of view, the way China can provide support to Russia. But at the same time, it will weaken the position of Russia. So it will not only depend upon India, but it will also depend upon Russia, how far they want to go down, because ultimately it is not only our relation with China and other things. Russia also has to see how far it can go down and accept those terms from equal to a lower position. So it may be up to a certain point they can see the advantage of this war, or the price which they are paying for the war, is that worth to go down to that low, or up to certain percent they may find it no return, and then it will be bigger loss to Russia than other countries. But definitely it is not good for India if this war is continuing, because influence of China will be much more, and India, say, will not be having much on the Russia. But you know our dependence on Russia, not for energy, but for other reasons. So we have to take whatever the position which suit best for India.
जो मुझे इम्प्रेशन मिला आपके कन्वर्सेशन से वो ये मिला कि ये वार जितना लंबा खींचेगा, मतलब ये इंडिया को शायद पोजीशन भी लेनी पड़ेगी। अगर शॉर्ट रन में जितना जल्दी ये ख़त्म होता है, प्रॉब्लली इट विल बी बेटर फॉर इंडिया एंड इट्स इकोनॉमी। आई थिंक
Yes.
दैट इज
There's no doubt about that. It is good for India if the war ends fast, because it will also impact our economic position, as well as inflation, which is hurting very high for various reasons. See, it's not only the crude oil; it is also impacting our market. See, ultimately, import and exports are depending upon the market. If all other markets are going down, if they because of inflation and because of this, world will go into recession. And once they go into recession, it will take few years to come out of it, and it will be a very tedious and vicious cycle which no country would like to go, because already 2 years or 2.5 years we lost because of the COVID. So none of the country are economically or in a position to continue this last 2.5 years because of the war.
Griji, thank you so much. It has been a wonderful conversation with you, and we hope that this war comes to an end, maybe in next 2-3 months, once they take, लड़ाई कब खत्म होगी, जब दोनों को एक ऐसी पोजीशन लड़ाई में मिल जाएगी कि जहाँ पे वो नेगोशिएट कर सकें.
Correct,
सो आई होप दे
correct.
गेट दैट पोजीशन सून. थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank
थैंक
you.
यू. थैंक
Thank
यू.
you, sir. Thank
तो आपने ये कन्वर्सेशन सुना. इट्स ए फैक्ट. ये लड़ाई जितनी जल्दी ख़त्म होती है उतना अच्छा है इकोनॉमी के लिए. एक चीज़ गिरीश जी ने बड़ी क्लियर बोली कि इंडिया फिर भी बेटर पोजीशन में है, और जैसे कि उन्होंने बताया हमारे जो रिलेशंस हैं वो रसिया के साथ बेटर पोजीशन में है. लॉजिस्टिक्स भी हमने कोऑर्डिनेट कर ली काफ़ी हद तक, लेकिन रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन फिर भी बढ़ा है. वी आर बेटर ऑफ, बट इवन देन लड़ाई तब तक ख़त्म नहीं होगी जब तक दोनों पार्टी ये रियलाइज़ ना करें कि अभी स्टेलमेट हो चुका और वो इससे आगे जीतने की पोजीशन में नहीं है.